Good morning, everybody. Oh, good morning. It's evening. My name is David Monias. I'm your host today. I'm your chef, everything like that. I'm your friend. And we're going to be cooking quite a bit of things, but I would love to introduce our lovely co-host, Karen Swain.
Hi, everybody. So nice to see you again. I'm looking forward to learning how to make David's bannock. I'm one of those bannockly challenged Anishinaabe women, so I'm looking forward to learning this new technique. Welcome, everybody.
Welcome, welcome. And of course, there's a few things to go over before we get started. First things first, land acknowledgement. We always like to say we are on Treaty 1 land, land of Anishinaabe, Ojibwe, and Cree. We always just like to make sure we remember that. I'm very thankful to be here. You know, it is what it is, and I love it. But with that said, I guess two things we have, I guess, is that we are going to be taking a break next week. We do have some scheduling conflicts, and it's also just going to be a good time for us to take a break. We will be back though with a few more sessions. Again, always do reach out to the staff that you're connected with on getting your place in, just because these last few bonus episodes, we're kind of just putting them up for a free-for-all, just because we did have some regulars and we wanted to have just some more opportunities for brand new folks to come in. And I think we have one more thing, and if I'm forgetting it, do let me know, Karen. If not, we can get started. I think we are good. Okay, awesome. And first things first, we're gonna get started with our bannock. And then if you haven't already, please preheat your oven to 450. I have already done so just for time's sake. We are gonna try to keep things within the hour, but we might run a little bit late, but maybe only 10 minutes. And I wanna leave you off where I feel confident that you can finish the dish today. Anyways, getting right onto the bannock. Let's get it in there right away, just so we don't have to worry about it. If you have multiple people cooking in the household, feel free to have them starting on the chicken noodle soup today, or chicken rice soup, my bad. And yeah, bannock today will be, we're gonna start with, I think I wrote 6 cups of flour. Oh, I already have another measuring cup in here. My bad. Is this 1 cup? Yes. So we're gonna get 6 cups of flour, and you're gonna see the overhead camera here now. And I kind of am a little bit, I put a little bit more generous. I'm a little bit more generous. I'm not the type of folks who kind of like nicely do that. Generally, you should. I'm not sure how well that shows up on the camera with the lights, but generally you kind of want to keep it even. There's a little bit more room with it for flexibility within this recipe. I do have a smaller bowl today, which is fine. I think everybody's going to be working with limitations here and there. And we're just going to put, again, like 6 cups of flour in here. And it's okay if they're not perfect, just because I do want to leave some for just some extra towards later on, just to flour the table and everything like that. And I think I'm about 5 right now. And I'm just going to add that last one in. And it's okay if it's not perfect. You can like half the recipe if you're cooking for a smaller load or you're working for yourself. And then another thing I'm going to get started on is getting our baking powder ready. So we're going to have that ready. We're just going to pop that in there. I think what I wrote down was 3 tablespoons. So that is the bigger one and not a spoon. But if you wanted to use a spoon, it's okay. I know a lot of folks don't use baking powder within their recipes at home and traditionally, but I thought I'd just show you this is a recipe that I learned. I've learned it from different grandmothers kind of yelling at me and asking me learning how to do this. But particularly, I did kind of learn from a grandmother on YouTube. If you look up making Cree bannock, you will find hers. I believe she's from Alberta, and I do want to give her those props. But again, this will be dedicated for all the young ones learning how to make bannock. So we're going to put 3 of these in there. And it doesn't matter how you put them in. We're going to be mixing them up. Throw that in there. And don't be shy with making a mess. It's not too much of a worry. And I think what I had written down for table salt was 1/2 tablespoon. So we're going to go with this size. And again, I'm not sure how well that comes up there, but that's half tablespoon. And you can even reduce the salt if you're kind of worried about your salt intake. It's not the biggest deal. It's not the crucial part. I know some people like it. I'm even going to put a little bit less in there. And what we're going to do here, you can actually even use a spoon or any kind of like that. Today, I'm going to use my hands for the beating part. We're just going to get it really in there. And again, don't be shy about making a mess on the table. We'll be kind of working on our table. Oh yeah, and of course, one thing I did forget to mention is that I always wash my table before using this and afterwards, especially being considerate of COVID and all that stuff like that. We just want to make sure we're always kind of following food safety protocols. Anyways, so that's in there. Our next step is either, and this is kind of a little bit of a, it's kind of optional. If you wanted to use butter, you could. I would use about maybe a quarter cup worth. Get it in there, plop it in there, and really just mix it in there. Today, I think I'm going to use some oil. This is going to be kind of my first time using oil within this recipe, but I know we did provide oil. And I'm going to today, as solidarity, I'm just going to put a little bit in there. I'm going to go out on a limb and say, where do I have my wet measuring cup? Do I have one of those around here? I think I had a second one. My apologies. Anyways, we're just going to put a little bit in there. And we're just going to pour just enough to kind of get a little bit of that flavor in there. If you are going to be making this for a campfire or anything else, I would definitely kind of not use oil or any kind of margarine, or even if you're going to fry it. And what we're going to do is just kind of almost kind of like mix it in there. And it's just going to kind of make it into certain kind of clumps. And it just kind of adds a different type of flavor to it and kind of that. I know a lot of people in their recipes, they use different kinds. And again, we don't want to get no flour in there. Just going to add just a little bit more. Doesn't have to be too much. We're not going too crazy with it. Sorry about the mess there. I'm going to clean that up later. But we're just going to mix it, and you're just going to fill these like little beads. And if you're using margarine or lard or anything like that, you just want to make sure it's mixing well proper. And it just kind of adds to it a little bit more. And we're just going to keep on mixing it there.
So while David is mixing all that up, putting in the love, I want to let you know that there are many, many, many recipes for making bannock. And some, like he said, use oil, some use lard, some use eggs and milk, I've seen. There's some put sugar, some put berries and raisins. So we have a lot of variety and different techniques and cold water, warm water. No wonder I can't make it. It's very confusing. But I also want to let you know, and it's okay to go back to David if you want, and I can just talk over. Bannock back in the day was a quick fuel for our people when they traveled. And one of the teachings that Grandmother Jean had let us know regarding the temperature of the oven is that the hotter the oven, the better the bannock would bake. So I think that's pretty fantastic. Métis people also would use bannock, and they would call it gullet or la galette. It's French. So yeah, we have a lot of good options here. I see David's ready with the water.
Yeah, and again, and in our next piece, it is pretty optional if you want to use water or milk. Typically, when making it for myself, I was going to use milk. Today we are going to use some water. I'm just going to switch it up. It is kind of fine either way. I think there's kind of a different fluffiness when we add milk. You can even use a half and a half if you really want. And the amount we're gonna put in today is gonna be 3 cups. I have 2 cups right here, and I'm gonna add another. And what I did, I don't know if you noticed off camera, I'm not too sure how well it's coming up on the camera here. On my screen, it's kind of, it's quite kind of overexposed, but I'm kind of made a well. See how it's like higher up here, but I can practically touch the bottom. And that's what we're gonna kind of do there. And we're gonna pour it in. And then this is where it kind of gets really handy if you have a spoon. And I'm gonna actually add another cup of water. Pardon me with the noise. We're just gonna add one more in there, and we're just gonna give it a nice stir up around here. And I'm just gonna grab myself a little spoon. It can be a wooden spoon, it can be anything like that. And it can really realistically be your hand as well. Typically, I would normally use my hands, but I just want to minimize how much I'm washing my hands from the amount, how thick it is. And if it turns out to be a little bit more watery, do not hesitate just to add a little bit more flour, because it kind of does look, I put a little bit, and I will have to kind of, you know, put it in there. But realistically, you're just going to be kind of mixing it, flipping it over, making sure that water absorbs well in there. And you kind of see, and we're just going to keep spinning it and grabbing it, almost like flipping it on top of itself. And if it's feeling pretty too doughy and less, or floury and less dough, feel free to add a little bit more water. You know, like, there's a saying, I forget what it is, but realistically, there's happy mistakes with a lot of this art. Oh, maybe I should move this forward a little bit more for you. And we're just going to kind of mix it in a little bit more. And thank you for cameraman Chris. And we're just going to kind of get that going there. And we're just going to keep flipping it and flipping it and flipping it. And we're just going to keep trying to getting that consistency in there. And I think we should be good. And I'm going to get my table ready. Ooh, I've already got flour on my hands, but that's okay. And we're going to grab some flour here. It's going to be a loose amount, right? And we're going to make sure our table is nice and dry. And we're just going to lightly flour it. We're just going to kind of go like that. And if you want, you can actually add a little bit to your hands here. It just does help with how much the dough will stick to you. And what we're going to do, we're going to start kneading it. Again, just don't be afraid to get a little messy. And what we're going to do is just plop this all down here. And we're going to have to act a little fast because we don't want a lot of the table dough to kind of mix in there. And we're just going to start like flipping and mushing in together. And you're going to have to pardon me. It's been a while since I made Bannock, so maybe you guys are going to look so much better than mine, and that's okay. And if yours doesn't look great, that's okay. Because the first step of getting good at something is sucking at something. And we
That
don't.
looks fantastic.
And again, it's just moving it in there. Sorry, I didn't mean to kind of interrupt you there, Karen.
No, and I'm really liking your technique. It reminds me of my mom's. She would always say, put the dough into the center, always knead into the center, because that's where the life is, from the center, and love is in the center.
Oh, I like that. That's the first time I've heard that. Where I learned my technique, again, it was through YouTube, but also kind of just like I used to work within a research center, and I had plenty of grandmothers telling me how to do it. So it was a little bit of a community effort. And I'm very thankful for all those grateful people in my life to kind of teach me how to do this. But again, we're just going to flip. You want to do this as much as possible, kind of get it going. You might see my table shake a bit, but that's okay. Yeah, this table is kind of wonky. So you can kind of see it like shaking. Oh, I think I lost one of my things, just fell over, but that's okay. And again, if it doesn't look too great, that's okay. Like, it'll turn out pretty yummy. It's kind of hard to mess up. And we're just going to do that.
Excellent.
And like Karen said, sometimes people are bannically challenged, but that's okay.
Yeah.
We're not ones to judge here. Oh, I love to see people are actually doing theirs too.
Yeah, I see a lot of kitchens.
Can I check in on theirs? Well,
yep, there's Ginger, Russ, and the crew. They're spreading it out now, making that oval shape. There's Gladys and Willow. Looks good. I think Gladys is a pro though.
Yeah, there's
Um,
probably people who are longtime champions here.
and there's Jasmine. What a beautiful child. Oh, I think Jasmine's a pro too.
Hmm.
Looks good. Oh, she's shaking her head. I'm gonna give it a try too this weekend, I think.
Nice. That's awesome.
I did mine. I made mine earlier. It's right here.
Oh,
Oh, let's see. Where are
can I
you?
see? Let's see.
How many,
Oh, wow.
Oh,
It looks great.
wow.
See, that's what
didn't
it can
make
look like.
Really
My kids
nice,
did
Cora.
Thank you.
Thank you, Laura. Oh, so, well, typically we're going to be kneading it kind of like almost kind of like using your knuckles. I've lost myself too there.
Where did you go?
Hello, hello. I'm just talking until I can find my camera on Zoom call.
There you are.
And we're going to make it about like 1 inch thick. It's not going to be thick. It's just going to be that. You do want it a little bit thinner if you can, just because it's going to expand and rise. And I think it's going to come out just looking like about this. I'm not sure how well you can see that on our camera yet. Cameraman Chris, are we there? We lost ourselves. So we hit ourselves. So my bad, or our bad.
Well, I can see you on the overhead.
Awesome. So anyways, the other thing I needed to get through it was that we're going to make it quite small. I don't know if you can kind of see that here. It's quite thin. It's about 1 finger length. I have mine to the size of my thing here. And what we're going to do, once we're done that, and if you didn't catch how my technique, I was just rolling it with my knuckles. And that's kind of like the traditional way. If you wanted to use the roller pin, there's no shame in using that. I'm sure it's going to be a heck of a lot easier. As you can kind of hear, I'm just like laughing and kind of out of breath. Just kidding. Anyways, with that said, I'm just gonna kind of get it into a nice square, and I'm gonna get my hot pan ready. And then if you want, you can kind of put a little bit, and I mean very little, not even a lot. See, like this, just to kind of enough to kind of coat it. Nothing too crazy. You don't want no kind of little flakes on there. And we're just gonna lift it up and place it onto our pan here. You can knock off some excess here. I'm just gonna occupy all this space here. And if you really wanted to, and then this is great for kids' lunches, your lunch, partner's lunch, whoever, you can actually grab a cup. And what I would typically do, we'll go back to the overhead, is that I would grab a cup and I would just cut them into little circles, almost like cookie cutters, right? And you can put them into little balls there and have one big loaf for, like, say, for tonight's supper, and the rest can be kind of meant for lunch. And they freeze pretty well, to be honest. So they'll be kind of really well. Anyways, last thing to do before we get in there is either use a fork or a knife and just kind of poke it quite a bit. The funny thing is, I'm not entirely sure why when you do it, it's just always been the way. That's just my grandmothers, the grandmothers who's taught me, they all just kind of say, they're not too sure. I'm pretty sure it's just to kind of help it cook evenly on the inside. And also kind of looks nice too. Does anybody have that knowledge in our group chat today? And we're just gonna poke it quite a bit. Get a lot in there.
I'm sure there's a science behind it, but I just know because my grandma did.
Yeah, that's kind of how I did it too, right? You don't question grandma, you just do. Anyways, with that said, I'm gonna go do one last overhead to kind of show you all the little holes that I poked in there. And we're gonna just toss it into the oven, and we're gonna forget about it for a little bit. Give it about 20 minutes and we're gonna flip it. But yeah, 20 minutes and we're gonna make sure it's golden brown. Give me a moment while I clean up my space, getting ready for the chicken noodle or chicken rice soup. Karen, if you want to check in with some families.
Okay, well, Jasmine let us know that poking it with the fork or the knife is to take the air bubbles out. See, there is a science behind it. Thank you, Jasmine.
Glad I can count on you.
Did you want to show us what your kitchen, Jasmine, and how you're making out?
I just started my bannock. I just got to put it in the pan. But that was my partner. He says that it takes the air bubbles out. I'm not. He makes the bannock in the house. So today
Right on. Well,
Yeah.
thank you for that knowledge and for sharing. And your dough looks fantastic.
Oh,
Very
thank
squishy.
you.
I see Gladys. How are you doing, Gladys?
Yeah, hello, we're doing good.
Awesome.
Today, Arizona.
Hi, Arizona.
Hi.
I saw your post about your bannock recipe and your unique measuring, and I just loved
My 7-Eleven cup.
yeah, and squishy belly. I really loved it.
Yeah.
I don't know
Thanks
if
for
my-
joining
am
us
I on?
tonight.
I love the 7-Eleven cup. That's funny. Use what you got, right?
Yeah.
All right, I see David, you've got it all tidy up again. Are you ready for soup?
Yeah, we're gonna get ready. We're gonna get straight into it. Most people are probably gonna be ahead of me on cutting vegetables. I do have some kind of prepped right here,
This
but
one?
I'm just gonna, for camera's sake, I'm just gonna quickly cut some with you guys, and then we'll get started. So with this, sometimes a little bit of brown on there, it's not that great. I'm just gonna throw that piece out, or I'm gonna save it for making broth if you really want to. One technique I really like with cutting celery or even carrots is just cutting them down the thing, down the long ways, and kind of just thinning out the pieces. If you kind of do it like that, you can kind of grab them all together. And you can kind of do that. You can just glide through them, and they're just small bite-sized pieces. And as we get closer to our fingers, we kind of go a little bit slower. I'm sure people can go faster if they're pros, but I just want people to know that I'm being safe and being mindful of just how this sharp blade can hurt me. And if we have young ones, I encourage them to let older folks use it. And we're just going to toss that in there. And I have some carrot here, and the same technique is just to remove the little bits at the end. Those are great for making broth if you like that. Just gonna toss that in there because mine's a little bit wonky and wobbly. I am just gonna cut it in half, just to make that a little bit easier. And again, the technique is just to kind of gently go through the middle here, just to kind of even up that. And if you want, even with this kind of size, I'd even go one more step. Put it into quarters, long ways, and we can just quickly chop that up too. I've already washed and peeled mine. If you really wanted to, you could keep them unpeeled. I do kind of like my carrots peeled, even though I like my potatoes cut. And we're always just being mindful of where our fingers are when we're making these, just because carrots are a little bit more thicker to get through, and I really don't want anybody to accidentally hurt themselves putting that pressure on to the carrot. That's why I do a slower, more forceful cut during these thicker ones. Just because I just really want to show that and not have any accidents, right? And then again, we're just grabbing a bunch of these together and just kind of slowly cutting them. We're just going to do slow applied force. You could go faster, but again, we just want to be safe. Unless you have that professional training, it's a little bit scary, but maybe you're just a pro because you cook for your family. And we're just going to toss that in there. And again, I do have some onions to prep. Where did I leave them? Oh, right here. I was kind of confused here. I already have some onions cut. I'm going to cut them again so you can watch me cry. But I'm going to get this garlic in there first. We're just going to cut them thin as we can into big pieces here. And we're just going to do that. This end piece right here can be great to peel off. Mine are already peeled, but if you don't have peeled garlic, I would peel them already. And we're just gonna get those nicely minced up into the space here. Again, just trimming them here and just getting them kind of as small as we can. Might want to double over that again. And again, we're just being mindful like where our fingers are and the knife at all times. And if you really want, just double back over everything there. Get them in tiny pieces. And our cameraman, Chris, is just cycling through some family photos or family time cutting there. And then again, we're just gonna get that small. Mine are gonna be a little bit chunkier because that's just how I'm gonna have it today. Just for time sake. And again, my onions is a great time. I'm glad cameraman Chris has it on our overhead just because I'm gonna end up crying. I might have to go speak to somebody after. Just kidding. And we're just gonna kind of get those going. And I always just cut across from just like the onion bits here, just so they can kind of fall apart. They may or may not kind of have some bits there, but once we kind of get frying them up and kind of stirring them up, they are just definitely gonna separate. And again, always just be careful where your fingers are. And we're just gonna cut across the layers here. And it just makes it a lot easier on just making sure we have all that. And they just almost kind of fall apart. And we're just gonna have all that bits there and we're gonna get started on our oven. Give me a second while I get that all ready. And yeah, oh, I left my oil over here. My floury oil. So I'm just gonna get this going on to at least medium heat. I'm not sure if we're already over here. We're just gonna put a little bit of oil. Just get that kind of nicely coated. And we're just gonna toss in our onions and garlic. This might be a little bit much for the recipe, but I'm just gonna have this in here. We're just gonna get that going. I'm gonna get myself a spoon. It's a part of me while I kind of disappear off camera. We're just gonna kind of agitate that and cut them up and kind of fry them up until they're a little bit translucent. And yeah. Any comments, Karen, or anybody else? Questions? Anything I can help you out with? Anybody who came in late?
Well, Ashley had to leave, take care of her little baby, so she wished us all well. She's going to try the recipe later. Oh, and I see Laura has to get going as well. So, yep, inbox your photo of your soup and bannock later when you can. And thanks for coming and joining us. And no, it's not rude. We're at hashtag FNFAOMB, Instagram FNFAO. Okay.
Yeah, just pass those photos on to anybody who you're connected with in the organization, or you can even just tag us on Facebook, Instagram, or even Twitter. And of course, for those who are leaving, and if you haven't already, I will connect with you after, or myself or Karen. These episodes are being put up on YouTube. If a little one does come on cameras, they get emojis over their face just for privacy sake. But yeah, they will be kind of recorded. Mainly the focus will be on myself. And we're just going to kind of get this going. I'm going to put that even a little bit higher. And we're just going to kind of almost a little fry them and get them translucent. Mine are already kind of starting to be like that in some parts. I can even feel the heat. And I wish I could really show you what's going on down here. I'm not sure if I'm not even on camera here. Not going to happen. But our bannock's already rising. It's already kind of nice, getting fluffy and nice looking. Yeah.
Awesome. And yeah, I can see you. You're facing. While the veggies are starting to cook, I just want to talk a little bit about the wild rice. I know it was probably a little bit of a surprise for everybody to get one of these. But with COVID, we had tried to source out wild rice from our local harvesters up in the First Nations close to Winnipeg. But they would say that the harvest was slow last year. And they didn't have enough that they could sell us because of COVID. It was challenging to get out. So that's why we've gone with a little bit of a combo with the wild rice and some seasoning. But typically you would get a little bag like this. And this is kind of the mixture of cracked wild rice, so it's broken, and then the long grain as well. And then I have a little jar of the long grain also.
Wow.
And one of our elders would say that as long as you have wild rice in your home, you'll never be without food. And part of that, I think, is a spiritual thing, and part of it is because this cup of wild rice will make a whole big bunch of cooked rice. It'll make a big pot full. So you really only need a little bit. So, and wild rice is so diverse. You can use it, you can crush it and make flour. You can make pancakes. You can do little, those crostinis. They look like Timbits. You could even make wild rice pudding, right? With berries. So like there's so many options. My husband makes like a casserole with cooked wild rice, celery, mushroom soup, corn, and chicken. And it's so delicious. And one of our ceremony food has to do with wild rice too, where we use the cooked wild rice, moose meat, maple syrup, and blueberries all together. And it, it sounds really unusual, and the blue moose meat kind of throws you off at the beginning, but it's so tasty. And that's one of our special foods that we only prepare for a specific ceremony. How's the onions going, David?
Pretty good. I think it's about time to put in our carrots. They're kind of getting translucent. They're kind of frying up a little bit. I have the heat up a little bit higher just to kind of catch up with our participants today. I'm sure they're way farther than I am. And I have our carrots and our celery, and we're just going to toss them all in. It's quite a bit, but again, I like mine a little bit vegetable-y. We're going to put almost a full amount. Why not? Let's go for it. And we're just going to kind of stir them up and kind of mix them up. Ideally, we'd be cooking them for like 1 or 2 minutes, just kind of throwing them in there, mix them up, kind of getting that thing in. And they will be cooking quite well and getting nice and tender once we have the broth or even our waters going. But you will see that kind of coming up soon. We're just going to kind of continue stirring them up. Make sure we're mixing this up. Nothing burns. We just have that going. And again, if you were worried about any kind of pieces falling apart or sticking, I know like you may have seen this kind of piece right here where it's kind of like still together. Once you kind of have that moment where you're kind of mixing them up, they tend to kind of loosen up and fall apart. Especially once they're kind of getting cooked and tender, they'll kind of fall apart real easy. Again, never ever feel bad if you feel like your cooking level is low. Up until just recently, I felt like my cooking level was low, and now here I am cooking for you guys. So really just don't doubt yourself. Again, like I said, one of my favorite sayings is the first thing being good at something is sucking at something, and you'll get better there. And that can go for a lot of different things, whether that be just like getting better at work or getting better at this, or taking different chances with life and kind of going towards that. You just got to
great. Ginger and Russ and family. Looks great, Arizona and Gladys.
Well, that's kind of going. I'm actually going to bring over. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, Carrie. Apologies.
No worries.
Some families might have received either this, which is kind of like chicken stock, I'm gonna go to the overhead here. Oop, this way. Gotta bring it up closer so we don't get that glare. I think we brought the less sodium one just because we want to be mindful of all that. Or we've also either provided provided these little Bouillon cubes. Again, I believe these ones require like 3 cups of water. I'm probably going to use some of this just to kind of make it easier and maybe add this later. But mainly I'm just going to focus on this and add some extra water as well. And because we do have our own chicken today, we'll kind of naturally have that chicken flavor as well. That won't be just from, stock. All right, I'm just going to add this on in. I believe that's what's next. Correct. So I'm going to add my broth in there now. We're just going to get this going. And we're just going to fill that up. And it may not be kind of up to stack. And if it feels like you have more like vegetables and soup, feel free to add like 2 or 3 more cups of that. And if it feels really watery, and then when you have the Bouillon cubes, just add those in as well. See, this is kind of turning out nice and thick. I might add a little, maybe like 1 or 2 cups of water. I think I will, just because I like to have a lot of soup, especially if we're going to be adding rice later on today. And I'm going to add 2 cups of water just for now. And that's
That looks
kind of turning
great,
out to be a good
Jennifer.
amount. Pardon?
I was just saying that looks great. We saw overhead from Jennifer.
Thanks.
Can I see that too? I had my back turned.
Let's see if I can do this right.
Wow, it
Oh,
looks great.
wow.
It's awesome.
We love seeing your photos and how you're doing in your kitchens.
Exactly. Thursdays, or I think, yeah, it's Thursdays, the day after Food is Medicine. When you guys send in these photos, we have a group chat and we just share them with each other, and they just make my day. And the next thing we have here is, and this is the optional piece too. I think this is both thyme and parsley, as far as I understand. I didn't label it on mine. We had pre-mixed, yeah, it should be thyme and parsley flakes. I think that's where we're getting at. You can actually add this in right now. I'm not sure how well that comes in with the glare. It's a little blend of the two. And this is
And
a
it's
great time to
about
do it now.
It's
Oh.
about a teaspoon of the blend.
Yes, that's correct. And I'm going to grab my measuring cup around here. It might be a little bit dusty, but that's okay. Today, I am cooking for myself and not others, so I'm a little bit okay with doing that. You said half a tablespoon?
A teaspoon.
Teaspoon, perfect. So that's this one. That's not the one without a B. We're just going to toss that in there. I'm going to put a little bit more just because it kind of seems like a little bit lot. If your family isn't one to have these kind of flavors extra strong, please kind of adjust to your guys' tastes because it can be quite overwhelming. I know some families prefer having less of that and a little bit more of the meats and vegetables. And yeah, and we're just gonna,
Oh, David, look at Ginger and Russ's families. Oh my goodness.
oh, it's already
Wow.
going. That looks great. That's so lovely.
Yum.
When do we put the chicken in? Did I miss that part?
It says to bring everything to a simmer and then add the chicken. Oh, no, you can add the chicken now and then bring it to a simmer. Sorry,
Exactly. That's
had it backwards.
and that's what I was just about to get to. And I'm going to bring over my chicken. I think in our packs that we included about 4 or 5, maybe 3. And I'm just going to toss in mine right now. Again, wait, I got to make sure this is super important. And I know people know this and they feel like this is normal. Maybe it's a little bit too much. But I always like to think what's normal for me, you may not be normal for everybody. We always just make sure these are defrosted. And once I kind of touch these, I have to immediately wash my hands. I can't be putting my hands on my face, my phone, computer, knives, or anything like that when handling raw meat. Make sure you keep your space contained, just because there is a little bit like germs and things that we have to worry about. all stuff that gets kind of put away while cooking, but we just have to be mindful when it's raw. All right, and I'm just gonna toss those in now. I'm just gonna mix that in with some of the parsley there. And I'm just gonna make sure they're completely submerged. I'm also even kind of gonna stir it in. And basically, for those who are gonna be ahead of me, in case you've already done it or not, we're just gonna make sure these are all cut. We are gonna remove the chicken once it's kind of cooked, and we're gonna shred it and put the chicken bones away and all that cartilage, but we'll keep all that cooked meat. And I'm just gonna keep that a little bit there, medium to high. I'm gonna keep that there just so mine can cook properly. Again, you guys at home have a lot more time than I do. And then, but I just have I'm running on a little bit of a time schedule here. And I just want to make sure you guys are being great. Anyways, I'm gonna wash my hands properly just because I touched raw meat.
So while David's washing his hands, I just wanted to give you a little bit of a variation for the soup. I would have done the chicken separately in seasoned water, like salt and pepper, maybe a bay leaf. I would have done it separate and then the vegetables separate and shredded the cooked meat and then put it in. So I would have done it a little bit different, but either way is okay.
Well said. I would also, in my home, I also pre-cook my chicken too and then throw it in. But
Oh, and David, it's 5:45, so the Bannock's been in the oven 20 minutes.
awesome. I'm just gonna take a peek at it. It's gonna be hard to show you guys, but I'm just gonna describe it to you. So mine's in there. It is still quite pale, and I'm just gonna put my light on if I have one. I guess I don't. You don't want to be opening it too much just because you don't want that temperature to leak out, but mine's still kind of quite pale. It's gonna be quite fine. If you really wanted to, this would be a great time to kind of take it out, flip it over. Maybe I will do that actually. So 1 second while I grab some extra insulation. Do we have that around here? I keep forgetting to grab mitts, oven mitts for our kitchen. Or just even an extra set of rags if we can find them. Oh, never mind, I got some. So
There
again,
we
this
go.
is very hot because the hotter the oven, the better the Bannock cooks. So be careful. I'm just gonna flip mine over and I'll give you guys a great view of what it looks like. I'm just gonna put that back in there. I'm gonna take this guy out. Oh, it's gonna take this guy out real fast. Make sure we're being careful. Please do not attempt to use just rags at home by yourself. This does get pretty hot. And as you can kind of see, it's already kind of getting nice, but it's still kind of pale. What we're gonna do, oh, don't want to move that oven there, in our pot there. We give it a nice thing. And this is kind of the temperature we want to have it looking. This is a great time to kind of just put it in for maybe another 10 minutes or so. If you are going to be ahead of me and you had it in there already, I would take a knife or a butter knife or a fork. I'm just going to grab mine here. And we're just going to poke the middle if you want. You don't have to do it now, but usually you can kind of tell that it's been kind of doughy in there. And I almost feel it kind of sticky. So that tells me it's not ready. If you have a toothpick, you can do it too. You can also, if it's been in there for a while, you can kind of just cut it and see what it looks like inside and just throw it back in, but it might just dry out a little bit. So again, we're gonna flip it over and throw it back in for about 10 more minutes. Karen, if you could kindly keep an eye on that time for me.
You bet. You said 10?
Yeah, let's do 10. And I might
Okay.
check it in 5.
All right.
But yeah, and we're just hoping for that golden brown. And we're almost there, quite a bit there. So, and it might take a little bit longer now that I had the oven open for an extended amount of time. And we're just gonna wipe some of this flour off here. You don't want too much near the elements. And I'm just gonna place these guys off to the side here. Awesome. Thank you so much for reminding me.
Looks good.
Yeah, it looks great. I'm excited to eat it. I'm kind of getting hungry. How about you guys? Wow, look at that technique, just getting at
Wow. Awesome job, Laura and fam.
it. She's like, what? She
I
didn't
love
know
your
that we
blue
were gonna notice.
hair.
Oh, is that colored hair? I can't see that. That's awesome.
Yeah, it looks blue,
The color is awesome. That's awesome.
like mermaid hair. Beautiful.
Again, we're
Yeah.
just bringing this up to kind of like a low simmer. We're just going to keep that. I don't think I have something to cover it with, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And
Tear off a chunk of dry grease.
Right in here.
Okay, Jennifer, if you think it's ready, then stand it up. Anybody else's mom and grandma used to stand up the bannock on the counter to cool?
Use a fork to poke many holes in the bannock. I believe this is to help with its cooking as well. Prevent it from blowing up. Bake the bannock until it's nice and golden brown.
yeah,
Did you check the inside?
So lightly flour, isn't it? Lightly grease.
it could be lightly floured, could be lightly greased. Either or is fine. And most nonstick pans should be okay with keeping it there. That's just the what technique that I've learned. Again, everybody kind of does that. And I'm just going to quickly, guys, show you for those who are had theirs and a lot sooner. So pretend this is my bannock. This is my make-believe bannock. Or maybe mine will turn out hard as a rock. Just kidding. So one thing I've always done was always just make sure I had a towel right here. And I generally put one on top right here. And I kind of pretend this is my bannock. If you have oven mitts, I would definitely make sure you're wearing them because it's going to be piping hot. And we're just going to kind of lean it against the wall like this. I'm not sure how well that's kind of executed.
I can see.
And we're just going to keep that. And the reason why we have it there is because we want to be mindful of like what our food is touching. And again, it just kind of lets it cool on both sides. If you really wanted to, but depending on how you want to. Ooh,
Looks
wow,
good.
that's looking amazing. Ooh, looks so great. And again, if you really wanted to, you can also lightly butter it. Just put it on top, get that nice thing in. This way you kind of don't need to butter it again. And then again, use that like a fork, anything to kind of avoid touching it with your bare hands. And you just kind of butter it on each side and let it cool. Again, just like this in that position. And it would let it cool pretty quickly. And hopefully it'll be ready just in time for the soup. Thank you for reminding me to tell them that.
Nice. And
Karen's always got my back.
I think too, it helps to keep our bannock a little crunchy by
Yeah.
leaning it so it doesn't have the steam soggy it up. That's a technical term. So I know a lot about making bannock, but I can't make bannock. Oh, that looks
Ooh.
wonderful.
Ooh, it's looking
That's
great.
Kathleen. Yum. Looks like
Yummy.
you added some extra veggies. Delish.
Mhm.
I threw
Ginger and
potatoes.
Yum.
Oh, you added potatoes? That's great.
Looks wonderful. So the rice that we had given you typically takes about 20 minutes to cook. So I had made chicken soup a couple weeks ago. I don't think that's the one where I put the beef broth in, but it did cook really fast in the soup. Took about the 15 to 20, and it was really yum. Did I tell you that story about how I forgot to buy chicken broth and open the beef instead, and I had chicken beef
No,
soup?
do tell. We got some time before like I have to kind of add in some of the rice there. So this is a great time for it. I'd love to hear some stories. I'm gonna pull up a seat.
We do 3 ceremonies over the winter to get ready for our fall Sundance. So our last one we had last weekend, and of course I cook soup for it. So I'm browning the chicken thighs, and they're all seasoned and golden and, you know, glowing. And then I'm doing the veggies like David had done with the saute. And then when I went to put the broth in, it was really dark. Wasn't that nice golden broth that David had? So I had already thrown the carton in the recycling, and I went and I looked at it and I'm like, oh no, it was beef broth. So I made chicken beef soup, but everybody ate it. Well, everybody, me and my husband. And it actually wasn't too bad. So
Yeah. Well, I mean, like beef and chicken are pretty good. Maybe not be the best, but I would, I would still eat it. Especially
it
if
was
it
different. Yeah.
Sorry, when do we throw the rice in? Well, that looks good.
So what do we have down on the recipe here is that once you kind of have the chicken in for at least approximately 10 minutes or so, 10 to 15 minutes, you have the kind of the broth and everything else kind of bubbling, but not over generically kind of like boiling. That's when it would be a great time. And you just throw them in, and it'd be like another 10 to 20 minutes just to have the rice cook. And we're just gonna have that simmer on about medium heat, medium to high, more closer to medium. Does that answer your question? It should be coming up real soon if you're following along with me.
And it's about 5 minutes for the Bannock.
5 more minutes.
Yeah, it's been 5 minutes since you checked it.
All right, I'm just gonna take a quick peek just so I don't burn it, and I just want it looking great for our Instagram photos. So give me a moment while I check that. It's looking pretty good. Whew, it looks kind of smoky. I think that's from the extra flour I put in there, and I think it's actually perfect. So I might pull it out now.
Excellent.
Thank you. And we're just gonna pull that out. Be careful, it's extra hot, it's piping hot. It's kind of hot on my face. Again, I'm just gonna put that there, and it's looking pretty good. It's looking pretty nice. I might grab something else to flip it over. Pardon me while I grab that. I'm just making myself a lot of things to clean afterwards. My pants included. It's like all floury. And I'm just gonna double check the sides here. And it's almost looking pretty awesome. I think it's right about done.
Excellent. And just a friendly reminder to turn off the oven.
Ooh, good idea, Karen. Thank you. Again, you always have my back. And it's looking pretty awesome. I'm so glad I have you around to kind of help me do that.
Thank
Give me
you.
a second while I kind of just transfer that onto something else to cool off.
And I just want to remind everyone, we're going to go over about 10 minutes, so you're welcome to continue to stay with us. And if you need to be somewhere else, we understand, and the recipe is really clear, but we just don't want to leave you without getting as far as we can in the recipe.
Not to where at least I feel comfortable kind of just letting you kind of finish things off. I'm just going to turn down this, and just for people who are seeing it, I'm going to give that a quick mix actually before I kind of switch over my Bannock. Sorry if that feels a little disorganized. We're just
Wow,
going to kind of make sure.
It's going really good.
It smells really good, to be honest. And some of that chicken there, it's already starting to lose that color, which is a good sign. And it smells so phenomenal. And we just want to make sure none of that parsley or any of the vegetables are kind of sitting still on the side, crunching up together. And it should be almost ready to have our rice added.
And if you feel like you need to adjust the quantity of rice that you're putting in, you could split the package into making 2 batches of soup, one now or use the other as a side dish. And then also another friendly reminder that there will be no class next week on April 28th. Staff is in training on that day. So we're returning on May the 5th. You will need to renew your interest. And we're making, I believe, homemade mac and cheese.
Mm,
That's Instagram worthy right there.
mm-hmm. And just so people can kind of see here. Uh-oh. I'm just gonna open this up. Pardon my mess. And I'm just gonna kind of lightly coat the top here with just some butter here. Again, you can also use a paper towel. And again, you just kind of soak up there. You don't want too much because it's not particularly the healthiest to have a lot of butter. But today we're just gonna gorge ourselves and enjoy it. Just enjoy a nice meal. And we're just gonna put that light piece there. You can do both sides, but today I'm just gonna do that. To be honest, this is even a little bit much, and I would even pat it down with, just extra different parts here. Oh, I do have paper towels. Cameraman Chris to the rescue. Hello.
Wow.
And we're just gonna give just a light pat because you can kind of see how much there is here, right? And we're just gonna get enough just to kind of lightly coat it. And if you even have one of those fancy brushes, or maybe they're not fancy because you can get them from Dollarama too. I would even use that, kind of like one of those basting or brushes that you would use for the barbecue. And you just kind of lightly coat that. And I'm just gonna flip that off to the side here. Maybe use this one. It's a little bit dirtier. Not dirtier. And I'm just gonna put just a light about, not as much as that one, just because I am kind of concerned about how much butter I'm using. Just a tiny bit, just enough to coat it. And it just gives it that extra little oomph to it. Perfect. And we're just gonna let that cool off camera. I'm just gonna put it off to the side. I particularly, in my setup, don't really have anywhere I can kind of lean it up against. So I'm gonna have to go against my own rules, or not rules, my own advice. And unfortunately, let it cool off to the side. And again, for the recap, for those who didn't see, we are gonna have it, if this was your Bannock, hopefully it's not as hard. We're just gonna have one cloth here. It could be anything, to be honest, this side. And we're gonna have one right here. And we're just gonna lean it off to the side, and then I'll just let it cool off real fast. And if you really wanted to cool off even faster, you can even cut it into chunks and put it off to the side. And then I'll let all that heat out real fast. But if we're saving it for later, then it'll be nice. Be nice and ready. And I always just kind of put, like, when storing it. Hello. Hi, what's up?
Oh,
Oh, which
I think that was accidental.
Oh, no worries.
What a
Again.
cute baby.
Oh. Oh.
Oh,
Very
so
little.
sweet.
There's a full head of hair too. Very sweet. Anyways, I think this is a great time for me to go check up on my soup, and I think it's almost about time for me to also put it in. For those who are cooking it alongside, this might be a little bit too much. I'm going to let it simmer closer to medium now. Now that it's at this level, I'm just going to put this lid off to the side, and I'm just going to stir in. Did you say about half our pack today, Karen?
If you want to do half, I think that would be good. Might be too thick with the whole one. And then if participants, if you notice your soup is really, really thick, you could also add a little bit more water because the rice is going to absorb some of the water.
Oh, so this is the herbs or the spices here. You can add them in now too. I think I might as well. I'm just going to quickly check their packaging and see what kind of herbs we got in here. And it seems like we got some vegetables, spices or salt, carrot powder, canola oil, natural flavors, turmeric, and some other stuff. Cool. I'll just add this in. For those who are cooking at home, whether you got one of these or something else, one thing to note, if you are going to save this for tomorrow or having it for lunch, just putting a little bit less of this off would probably be a good idea. I like to always, especially if I'm cooking it for the next day, I tend to cook my rice separate and just put it in as needed. But because we are planning to eat this today, I'm just going to toss it in there. And we're just going to make sure it evenly gets coated all over. And again, that's going to take another 10 or 20 minutes just to kind of cook there. And how are our people for times? If I do have to say bye now, I would love to say bye to you before just leaving. If anybody has this.
We have quite a few that are still with us. I wonder if you could, if there's a leg that is cooked enough that you could shred it, and then maybe we could go after that. We're at about 6
Yes, of
minutes
course.
after 6.
And I'm just gonna double check for that too then. Just give me a second while I grab myself a nice fork and maybe something else to grab it with. Today I'm gonna use some tongs just to kind of be safe. Ooh,
Wow.
wow. I'm just gonna quickly double check up on the chicken here. I'm gonna grab maybe another plate. Do I have an extra plate over here? Yes, I do. So maybe I'll use that instead. Put that off to the side. And it's
So while-
looking pretty. Oh, go ahead, Karen.
Sorry. Hi, guys. While David's grabbing the chicken out of the pot, I just want to let you know that the recipe contained some extra information about rice and varieties of rice, and any rice is good for soup, even leftover takeout rice. I use that to make the cabbage roll soup. And of course, any variations, you could change up the protein, you could add or adjust your veggies. You could even add some crushed tomatoes. And if you wanted, you could even skip the rice. And there are a whole big bunch of varieties of these Uncle Ben's Fast and Fancies too. And there's David with the chicken.
So mine kind of look for the most part actually pretty cooked. I'm actually going to bring it up a little bit closer. Not sure how well that comes up on our camera. You know, it's lost that color. If we kind of poke it a little bit more, we do see some color, but it's kind of okay because I'm just going to be throwing it in a little bit further, making sure it's cooked. Now have it on simmering for another 10 minutes, even off camera. And then what we're going to do, maybe I should do this with my dominant hand. Let's grab the top here, and we're just going to grab our knife or anything like that. See, there is quite a bit of color still there. Typically that wouldn't be quite ready for, I'm going to bring that up to the camera again. Typically that wouldn't be safe to cook, or maybe we would want a little bit more of that color gone. But again, it's going to go straight back into the oven, or not the oven, our pot, and it should be fine afterwards. And we're just looking to kind of strip all that meat off. And if you have anything kind of like rubber gloves or anything that can kind of give you a little bit more dexterity, that'd be great too. See how well it comes off. Oh. It's a little bit harder than I think, or it looks. So sorry if I'm kind of playing here. See? And it comes off pretty easy. Like I'm not putting a lot of pressure, not putting a lot of effort. And we're just going to get all of this. And if you really wanted to, you can actually save these for broth as well. There's the world of broth, and making your own broth is quite diverse, and there's a lot of recipes out there. That's why I bring it up. Whoa, I'm going to drop that. Put that in our waste bucket for today. And again, maybe I'll switch up the style of how I hold it. We're just going to kind of shred these up. I'm going to grab them, just mush them on in there, pull out off, shred off all that meat. Yuppers. I'm just going to switch hands here just so I can get a different angle. maybe you don't want to have, maybe you want to have a bigger plate handy, and we're just gonna get all that off there. And you can even just kind of put it on the table and mix it off here. For the most part, this stuff is pretty cooked. Nice in there. And we're just gonna scrape off all that extra nice juicy meat. Don't eat it quite yet. Again, it's raw. Flip it over to the other side. You know what? Maybe I will try. Is it hot? It's boiling hot? No. It's a little bit warm, but be careful. We're just gonna put a little force on that one just to get that cartilage off. We're just gonna get that extra bit there because we try to use as much as possible. And it looks like we have a little bit of skin there that we can add. Ooh, are people already eating today?
Wow, looks good.
It does.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks for
Wow.
joining.
Yes,
Thanks for joining.
So
Again.
remember, no
evening.
party next week, not until May 5th.
Okay. Bye. Bye.
Bye.
Bye. I'm glad to have
and-
you.
Also, some of the darker discoloration around the bone where the veining is could also be because the chicken had been frozen, and you find
Mhm.
you sometimes find that darker coloration when it's still a little bit cold or not fully defrosted. And so
Mhm.
now we see the meat going back into the broth. And as you saw with Gladys and Arizona's bowl, they left the drumstick whole and will eat it like that, which also is a really nice thing to do.
Yeah, my mother used to cook our homemade chicken soup like that. And I'm just checking to see if I have one more. I don't think so. I'm just gonna do that. We're gonna let that nice and simmer. And again, because these are fresh, I'm gonna use the tongs again. And we're gonna finish there. And if for those who are still here with us, please renew your interest. Please share your Instagram worthy pictures with us. Our social media pages should be coming up right now.
So we're
And,
on Twitter, FNFAOMB, Facebook, First Nations Family Advocate, Instagram is FNFAO, and we're hashtag food as medicine.
And don't be afraid to check out some of the recipes and things on our YouTube page. Please subscribe. If we get 100 subscribers, we can change the URL, and we're really aiming for that. And we're just hoping to kind of reach that milestone for ourselves.
And if tonight is your first time joining us, you can search YouTube and take a look at our past 10 recipes. We're on number 11 today.
And as we come to the ends of our bonus episodes, feel free to email us if you want to have any recipes that you missed. We may not be able to print them off for you, but I will definitely be able to kind of at least, send you off electronically all the recipes that we cooked in the past before, and their ingredients list and everything like that. Karen and Chris have worked so hard on preparing those for us, right? They're hard workers.
It takes a village to put this workshop together, so we gratefully acknowledge Jennifer, who coordinates for us, all of our delivery drivers and shoppers, Chris behind the camera and the setup, and of course, our chef extraordinaire, David. We really appreciate the whole team that comes together, and we appreciate each and every one of you that join us Wednesday. It's really a wonderful thing and something I really enjoy in my life. So I'm really grateful to see all of you and be part of this really special time together. And Sabrina says, thank you for everything. I love following along and making these delicious recipes. And
I'm so happy to hear that. That
and
warms my
Phoebe's,
heart.
Phoebe's looking forward to May 5th when we're doing our homemade mac and cheese. So glad you could join
It'll be
us
so
again,
yummy.
Phoebe.
It's gonna be. And I guess I should probably check in on my soup one last time before we kind of leave off things. Are most people kind of feeling comfortable with where we're leaving off if we have to?
I think we're doing pretty good. We have 7 families yet.
Nice.
So
Again, we're
thumbs up,
also just like, oh, go ahead, Karen, you first.
just thumbs up if you're good to go.
If you have any questions, this is a great time to check in now.
Oh, Phoebe says, thank you. Just waiting for my food to cool now. It looks good and smells delicious.
I know it's
Ah.
like, oh my goodness, it's so yummy smelling.
Looks great, Kathleen. Thumbs up from Sabrina, Ginger and Russ, and everyone. Thank you guys. The soup tastes really good. Jennifer, thank you. I really enjoyed this. Awesome, guys. So
Awesome.
happy.
Makes me happy. And then maybe I'll come back to the overhead one last time. Again, we just want these kind of like these grains of rice to be a little bit thicker. I'm just going to try one now. Still kind of a little bit kind of tough. So maybe I'll give it another 10 or so minutes simmering.
Oh, and Cassidy says, me and Gabe will send a pic. So awesome. Thanks,
Awesome.
Cassidy. All right, everybody, we're going to say goodnight. And again, enjoy your supper. And we'll see you in 2 weeks.
See ya.
And I will send
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.